it's my privilege to introduce such a towering personality. Even though it is difficult, I'll try to make it a brief introduction as much as possible. Dr. S.Y Quraishi sir has joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1971, and after holding several strategic and key positions, sir rose to become the 17th Chief Election Commissioner of India for the world's largest democracy. He figured in the Indian Express list of 100 most powerful Indians of 2011 and also again in 2012. He also figured in India Today's powerful list of 100 most powerful Indians in 2012. He has been a prolific professional and also proactive public servant who held many positions in the government, from being a national coordinator, Youth Action on AIDS, to this position of Director General, NACO, that is National AIDS Control Organization, between 2004-2005, to the extent of being Secretary to the Government of India for the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports between 2005 and 2006. As we all know that he is the best known as Ambassador of Democracy, not just in India, but also elsewhere too, as the Election Commissioner and also Chief Election Commissioner of India between 2006 and 2012. He has introduced a number of innovative reforms. For example, he has established an Expenditure Control Division and also an Voter Education Division in the Election Commission of India. By this effort has controlled to the extent possible the money power in elections and also brought about a revolution of participation amongst voters. He also founded the India's International Institute of Democracy and Election Management to professionalize election management and share it with the emerging democracies of the world. Over 70 countries have received training in this institute within 5 years. He has also been a member of the Board of Advisors of International Institute of Democracy and Electoral Assistance, which is referred to as IDEA, Stockholm, since December 2012. He was also a member of the advisory committee to assist and advise the Global Commission on Elections, Democracy and Security, headed by late Mr. Kofi Annan. He was also observer of elections in many countries, including in Russia and South Africa. We have to also keep in mind that he's also a great promoter of youth development, contributed to health and family planning, and not only this, he also been loved by not just those who are in the government, but also by the corporates. He has also received several prestigious awards in recognition of his contribution to civil society and human development issues. He is also an author of several books where one should mandatorily have An Undocumented Wonder, The Making of the Great Indian Election, written in 2014, and also India's Experiment with Democracy. So this distinguished lecture today is falling on this commemorative day of National Minority Rights, which is a celebration of UN Convention that we have adopted, which has been adopted in UN in 1992. And also it is falling on the International Day of Migrants. We know that the democracy is about majority, as Ambedkar has stated in the Constituent Assembly, and a republic is not just about the majority, but more about minorities, be it religious, ethnic, racial, or linguistic. So this lecture is about demystifying the myths surrounding the minorities, and also it is about celebrating and furthering India's republic. Thank you very much, sir, for this opportunity to introduce you. Without much ado, I warmly welcome Sir Quraishi sir to deliver his address. Over to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for a very generous introduction. I'm always very happy to talk to the young people, the youth, because I spent quite a few years in Ministry of Youth Affairs as Secretary and earlier as Joint Secretary. I was also Director General of National Nehru Yuvak Kendra, which has 300,000 youth clubs under it. I also founded the Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development in Sri Perambudur. So in terms of many years, I must have spent about 15, 16. And it's always such a delight to talk to them. And even when I went to the Election Commission, I focused on getting the youth involved in democracy, because we found that their registration in the electoral roll was very, very minimal, about 15% or so. So we studied the issue and launched a campaign to get them on board. And now there must be about 85, 90%. So we feel that the future of India, the youth have to be focused on, and we have to invest a lot in them. Now onto the subject. You have a PowerPoint, don't you? Can you upload it, because it will be easier for me and for everybody to understand, which you can later share with your fellow students. While it is loading, let me continue. That this book, which I wrote about 3 years ago, which is called now the heading of this PowerPoint presentation is "Are Muslims Overtaking the Hindus?" which is the propaganda which we are facing these days, and I've tried to answer that. But the book is this is the book, The Population Myth: Islam, Family Planning, and Politics in India. So, if we can have the first slide, please. Yeah, next, please. Yeah. There are several myths being spread about the Muslim population in India, which are creating fear and hostility among the Hindus against the Muslims, which is what I'm planning to dispel. Myth number one: the Muslims produce too many children and are solely responsible for the population explosion. This is a widespread belief. Now, yes, it is true that the Muslims have the lowest level of family planning practice. Only 47% of the Muslims have adopted family planning, 53 have not. And as a result, the total fertility rate, let me explain the total fertility rate. TFR refers to the number of children a woman will bear in her entire lifetime, reproductive lifetime. And 2.1 is considered the replacement rate. If TFR of a country or of a state or of a section of population is 2.1, that means the replacement rate. What does it mean in simple terms? That the mother and father are two people. When they go pass away, their two children will take over, and the population is replaced. 0.1 is kept as a margin for infant and child deaths, because many people lose their children in infancy and in childhood. So to take care of that eventuality, 0.1 is provided. So if the TFR is 2.1, it is considered the replacement rate. This table in front of you, this slide shows that Muslim TFR is 2.3, which is higher than the replacement rate. Now, while I've admitted that there are two things: the lowest family planning among the Muslims and higher TFR among the Muslims, but the fact that the Hindus are not far behind, and that is completely ignored. They have the second lowest family planning at 58%, which means 42% Hindus have also not adopted family planning. And their TFR of 2, although it is less than replacement rate of 2.1, is also the second highest. This is also missed out. Now, these are some things which we need to keep in mind while blaming one community for for overpopulation. Now, between 1951, as you know, the population figures are collected in every census, which is held every 2 years. And between 1951 census and 2011 census, there was a net increase in Muslim population of 13.6 crores. But at the same time, Hindus also increase, and by a much larger number, they increase by 67 crores. Thus, major contribution to population, so-called explosion, came from the Hindus as much as 5 times more than the Muslims. Now, the gap between Muslim and Hindu population also increased from 26 crores to 80 crores in these 60 years. The gap between Hindus and Muslims in 1951 was only 26 crores. Now there are 80 crores more Hindus than the Muslims. So this is also an important fact. That the propaganda that Muslims are overtaking the Hindus is wrong and needs to be remembered. Next slide, please. Yeah. Myth number 2, Muslim population growth is upsetting the demographic balance. The demographic ratio of India indeed shows an increase in Muslims from 9.8 in 1951 to 14.2. What does it mean? That in 1951, 9.8% of all the population was Muslims. Now, according to latest census, they are 14.2, which is a percentage, in percentage terms, 4.4 percentage point increase in 60 years. 4.4% in 60 years. Now, Hindus were 84.2%, and they've come down to 17.8%. So this decline of the Hindu population was distributed over different communities, mainly the Muslims. So so this is the truth which needs to be admitted. Now, the next point is important, that Muslims are adopting family planning faster than all communities, even the Hindus. Their gap in their number of children is narrowing. But incidentally, the gap was never 8, 9, 10 children as people have been made to believe. Even in 1991, the gap between Muslims and Hindus was only 1.1, which has now come down to 0.3. This is according to National Family Health Survey 5 data. Let me also explain to you that the National Family Health Survey is conducted every 5 years by International Institute of Population Studies, Mumbai, with the help of Government of India and many donors. And they report every 5 years, mainly on the status of women and children. So the latest NFHS survey, which was 5, came out 2 years ago in 93, 94. Now, we can go to the next slide. This is how the gap, you can see the coming down, the narrowing from NFHS 1 in 1991 to NFHS 4. And this slide needs to be updated with the data which came subsequently. It is now only on the last bar, that will be the 5th bar, that is even lower, which is only 0.3. Next, please. Now, myth number 3. I'm only going to deal with 5 myths. Therefore, don't be overawed by these slides. There are only a few. The myth number 3, that there is an organized conspiracy by Muslims to overtake the Hindu population to capture political power. This is the propaganda on which, in many parts of the country, and in fact, the Hindus are being encouraged to have more children so that they do not lag behind. And this political power issue is answered. And in fact, even there are calls for genocide, that, kill the Muslims, because otherwise they will, Aurangzeb will come back. So all that kind of propaganda you would see after all this presentation is totally uncalled for, totally wrong, and it is mischievous. Now, the myth is that there is that the Muslims are about to succeed in overtaking Hindus very soon, in a few years, whereas we have seen that the gap is actually narrowing down. Now, very latest, the RSS chief appealed to the Hindu communities to produce 2 children. Although Government of India recommended norm is 2 children, he asked the Hindus to produce 3 children, which will be which will have a negative effect on India's family planning success story. And I'm sure the people are not going to take it very seriously, as they did not to earlier appeals when they were asked to produce 8 to 10 children. The fact is that no Muslim leader or scholar has asked Muslims to produce more children to overtake Hindus. In other words, they have not asked for more children for political reasons. It is true that some mullahs, they discourage Muslims from family planning only on a mistaken assumption which they have that Islam prohibits family planning. Only for this reason, some of them oppose it, not for political takeover or anything. Now, to answer this question conclusively, I requested Professor Dinesh Singh, who was the Vice Chancellor of Delhi University till recently, and he's a great mathematician, very well-known mathematician, to make a mathematical model for me on the basis of the last 70 years data. And he, with the help of his fellow Professor Ajay Kumar, he demonstrated that Muslims can never, I repeat the word, never overtake the Hindus. And the next slide will tell you how. Let us have it. Now, if you see the bottom line, that is the growth of the Muslim population. You will see the line is almost horizontal, parallel to the ground, whereas the Hindu population is actually, because of the sheer base, the number, they are 80%. So the gap is only increasing, as I have mentioned earlier also. And this is for the last 70 years. Then I asked Professor Dinesh Singh to give me, this is for the past 70 years. I said, what will happen in the next 100, 200,000 years? So let us see the next slide. The next slide says exactly the same thing. So this is how it will go on. The Muslim is the bottom line. The Hindus are on the top of the line, and they are only going northward. The gap is only increasing. There is no question at all whatsoever of Muslims overtaking the Hindus, even for 1,000 years, as he told me. And which is documented in the book, by the way, exactly in his word, in the word of these two gentlemen, which I mentioned. Next slide, please. Now, myth number 4. Muslims use polygamy for increasing population. As you understand, polygamy means multiple marriages. And we have heard leaders saying that hum panch hamare 25, which means we 5, me and my 4 wives, and our 25 children. Then there is a slogan, hum char hamare 40. No, these kind of slogans are being spread very widely in northern belt. Fortunately, south is free from this. In the northern belt, this is a widespread belief. But nothing can be farther from the truth. Because in India, polygamy is just not possible. I mentioned it to the top leader of the right wing organization that what you're saying and is wrong, and this is just not possible. He says, why it is not possible, polygamy? I said it is not possible because there are no women. He said, what do you mean? He said, if you have heard the term gender ratio is the ratio of women to male population. And the reference number is 1,000. For 1,000 men, according to the latest information, there are 920 or 22 women, which means about 60 to 80 men out of every 1,000 will not get even their first wife. So when so many people will not get their first wife, how will I get my second or third or fourth wife? So there are no women. So he had a hearty laugh on that, which shows that he registered the point. Because But the fact that it has been spread so widely, the general belief is that every Muslim has 4 wives and has 25 children. And I don't know, I would request this audience, in my 77 years of life, I have seen only one man, one Muslim man who has 2 wives, because one was too ill and therefore he married the second. And I have not seen any in the bigamous Muslim man. Whereas if you Google, you'll find lots of Hindu men having 2 wives officially, and not to talk of the concubines, which is quite widespread practice. Now, a study was done by government by sponsored by the government of India in 1975. That all communities, I repeat, all communities had some polygamy, and listen to this carefully, the Muslims were the least polygamous. So, if you show me the next slide, this will bring out the point clearly. Now, we found that all communities in India are polygamous. The first bar is the tribals. Tribals means not Muslims. So, as high as 15.25%. Then the Buddhists, 9.7%. The Jains. Then the Hindus, 5.8%. Then the Muslims, 5.7%. This is Government of India's own study, mind you. And somebody says, look, this is only one study. What can I do if there has been only one study? The Government of India could have sponsored many more studies, but after this, no study was done. However, as a researcher, I wanted to see whether these figures are freak or they really represent some pattern. So I went back to the census of 1931, 41, and I found from 1931 exactly the same ratio, plus minus 1 or 2. The same pattern was there in 31 and 41, and this was reflected in this 1975 study. Next slide, please. Now, polygamy, as we saw just now, is statistically impossible. And I mentioned 1940 per 1,000 men was this figure of the census in 2011. But 922 is the figure from 2020. And if we see the latest figure from wherever it is available, it will be around that only. Now, the ratio of women in India has always been lower for over a century. 1 century, I had seen the census figure from 1901 to 2011. So, in these 11 censuses, the ratio of women has always been lower. So, therefore, the polygamy in India. Now, you will say that after all, there are some people who are polygamous, as seen from the previous table. But that will be good for family planning, because studies have shown that the only wife of a husband, if he produces 4 or 5 children, from the second wife, the number of children drops down to less than 1 or 2, between 1, 1.2, 1.5 or so. So, therefore, even the aberration of polygamy, because every polygamous man will leave one person unmarried because he will have no woman. So this is the reality of the statistics. Now, the question whether Islam encourages polygamy. Some Maulanas do believe that Islam is against family planning. I have written in the book, I have written a whole chapter because I studied Islam from the Quran and from Hadith. Quran, you all understand. Hadith is what Prophet said or what Prophet did as reported. So these are the two pillars of Islamic jurisprudence or Sharia, as you must have heard of the word Sharia. Now, there is a general misconception that Islam encourages it. The reality is different. Islam only permits not encourages, only permits polygamy subject to two stringent conditions, which is absolute equality among wives and marrying only widows. I would like to explain this. Why is it that Islam permitted? Because when Islam came in 1400 years ago, men would die in tribal warfare, which was quite common, and women were left alone. Many of them married with children, so there was nobody to look after them. So in such a situation, Quran said that you can marry such women in one, two, three, or four. But actually, it put a limit because the rich people there, the tribal sheikhs, they used to marry the 30, 40, as was the norm in any Rajas or any Maharajas or Badshah's court in the earlier time. Now, there is only one verse in the Quran, which is in the chapter called An-Nisa, which in Arabic word for the woman. The chapter's name is The Woman. In that chapter, it is mentioned that you can marry one, two, three, or four, provided you can treat them equally. And Quran itself, Allah Himself is warning you that treating them with absolute equality is not easy. Therefore, only when you're confident that you can treat them equally, you should marry a second woman, otherwise not. Now, one thing which even Islamic scholars have missed, that the second condition, which is about marrying only the widows. And I discovered it when I was studying it in detail, because this chapter where this is mentioned, Allah is describing the condition of the orphans and the widows. And He is telling us to treat them fairly, not to cheat them of their money, not to replace their good things with our bad things. And it says, and the best will be that from among them, you can marry one, two, three, or four. From among them means from among those widows and orphans you can marry. Therefore, I insist that this is the first condition. And otherwise, when you go to a newspaper, matrimonial advertisement, they're always, everybody is only looking for virgins. And that is the condition. But in this case, the condition is from among the orphans, you can marry one, two, three, or four, provided you treat them equally. And what does it mean that I marry a second woman and send her to the kitchen to wash my utensils, whereas the first wife is the queen and she is enjoying her life? So that is what Quran is warning you about. Okay, please don't do that. If you choose to marry, follow these two conditions. Next slide, please. Myth number 5, that is the continuation of the same thing. Nowhere in the Quran family planning has been prohibited. Now, Quran is very specific. When Allah wants to prohibit something, He tells you specifically. For instance, sharab, drinking is prohibited. Taking interest on loan is prohibited. Sex outside marriage is prohibited, but family planning is not prohibited anywhere. There are some verses of the Quran which are interpreted for or against family planning. This is the only basis of understanding Islam, and it's a stand on family planning. Now, there are numerous verses of the Quran and citations from Hadith, which is from the Prophet, which emphasize quality over numbers, and health of women and children, and right of children to good upbringing. But after all, the study have found that all the ulama, the Islamic scholars worldwide is agreed on one thing, that sterilization is forbidden altogether. But spacing methods, but spacing has, which is also the Government of India policy. Government of India policy, vasectomy and tubectomy are the last option. It only encourages spacing through birth control temporary method, which is also the Islamic position. Now, let me take you through just one verse of the Quran to my mind, and this is also in answer to some Islamic clerics objecting. What is this verse? Let those who do not have the means for marriage keep themselves chaste until Allah give them means out of His grace. What does it mean? कि जब तक तुम्हारे पास पैसा ना हो और इस लायक ना हो कि आप फैमिली सपोर्ट कर सको, जब तक आप बैचलर रहना, शादी ना करना. Chaste means keep yourself clean, don't do not go to other women until Allah give them means out of His grace. What does it mean? No child marriage, no early marriage, only when you are able to support a family. So this is a very the forward-looking statement for family planning, and which is also the policy of Government of India. You can't marry before you are 21 if you are a boy, or 18 if you are a girl. Why the child marriage is banned? Exactly for this reason. So next slide, please. Now, again, continuing with the Quran's position, Islamic law is that the most important thing is the Quran, and it is supported by hadith, or the plural is ahadith. It is a plural, whatever the Prophet said. So just as we have a constitution which is supreme, in Islamic context, that is the Quran, and just as you have laws under the constitution, here the hadith or Prophet, whatever he said, is only to provide the details. So I went to the second tier of Sharia. Here the Prophet, somebody went to the Prophet, a young man who of marriageable age. He went to the Prophet complaining. He said, look, I'm a young man. I have my physical needs. I want to marry. But Allah says that I should wait till I have the means. But I don't have the means, so what should I do? So Prophet repeated that. The young man, those of you who can support a wife and household should marry, because marriage will keep you from looking with lust at women, other women, and it will preserve you from promiscuity, which means sex outside marriage. But those who cannot, like this young man who had gone there, who cannot wait, you should take to fasting, which is a means of tempering sexual desires. This is a hadith that means which Prophet has also provided the way that you should keep away from early marriage till you are in a position to support a family, support a wife. Now, the second one is also a hadith which I think clinches it totally. Somebody went to the Prophet and he said, I have many children and I don't want any more. And those days, the only method of family planning was the withdrawal method, which the technical word for it is coitus interruptus. He says that I want to do coitus interruptus. In Arabic word is al-azl. But some Jew tells me that no, that is haram, forbidden, and it is like a minor infanticide. Don't do that. So on that, Prophet said, no, the Jew was not right, Jew was wrong, the Jew lied, the Jew lied. So which means if you want to practice family planning, go ahead and do it. What can be a more specific recommendation than this? Next slide, please. Now, you will notice that Islam now is not only not opposed to family planning, but in fact is the pioneer of the concept. 1400 years ago. Now, there is the professor of Al-Azhar University in Cairo. That is the biggest and the most prestigious Islamic university worldwide. There is a professor of Islamic studies called Abdul Rahim Umran. He made this statement, which I have reproduced here. It's a wonder to the thinkers of today that Islam should give so much importance to child spacing and family planning so early in human history and in the absence of compelling population pressures. What does it mean, the last one? That 1400 days ago, there was no overpopulation, there was no population pressure. And at that time, Islam talked of family planning, which shows how far sighted the vision of the Quran and Allah was, that He told you the thing which I have mentioned, and some more will follow. Next slide, please. Now, it is important to see that it is not a Hindu versus Muslim issue at all. Fertility of all communities is dependent on socio-economic factors, particularly three, which means literacy, income, and delivery of family planning services. As the literacy goes up, number of children goes down. As the income goes up, the number of children goes down, and similarly, delivery of family planning services. And the level of these issues varies from region to region. For instance, South Indian states have done extremely well in family planning, whereas the UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, North Indian states are lagging behind. Why? Because the literacy rate of South is much higher. Because of that, their development indicators are higher, and health programs and family planning services, they are much better delivered. So, which is why the South Indian states have done extremely well, which has also created some political debate. If somebody will remind me at the end of the day, in the context of elections, I'll explain that to you. Now, there are large interstate variations, as I mentioned. So, for instance, TFR in Kerala is as low as 1.56, and in Bihar it is as high as 3.4, almost double, and all the states are there in between. Then in 25 states out of 28, Muslims have lower total fertility rate than Hindus of Bihar. So if Islam was the factor, Muslims everywhere will have highest TFR, but in 25 states they are even lower than Hindus of Bihar. So there is therefore nothing like Hindu fertility or Muslim fertility. It is the fertility of that region, people of the region, based on their literacy, income, and access to service delivery. All right. Now, for instance, the Muslims alone, their TFR ranges from 1.74 in Tamil Nadu, as low as 1.74, to 4.11 in Bihar, while that of the Hindus ranges from 1.42 in Kerala to 3.29 in Bihar. So that's so much of range. Would you call any of these Hindu rate or Muslim rate? No. It is more like Bihar rate and Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra rate. So it has to be seen in that context. Now, high fertility of some communities in some regions is on account of regional socio-economic factors rather than religious factor, as you will see from the next slide. Next slide, please. You will notice this bar, this line is going down. Going down when there is zero education, illiterate, if they produce 3 children and go to the end of the line, 1.7, it almost half if you have done class 12 and everything in between. The point I make, as the education goes up, fertility goes down. This is the graph. All NFHS. This is from NFHS 4. Every NFHS 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. They have a similar graph. Next, please. Now, education delays age of marriage. So, illiterate people, the age of marriage for illiterate, if it is 17.2 years, which means illegal marriage. So, as the education goes up, anybody who has done class 12, boy or girl, then this is with reference to girls' education, women's education. If a woman has studied up to class 12, her age of marriage is 22.7. 5 years delay. Obviously, if she had been married 5 years earlier, in those 5 years, she would have produced 2 or 3 children. So this delay in marriage because of education is a very important factor to understand. Next, please. Now, this is about the delay and impact on the number of children. So, upper line is rural, the lower line is urban. And you will notice the total synchronization, total harmony. Marriage below 18 years, 5.4 children. And 24 and above, it comes down from 5 to 4. And in the case of urban areas, from 4.6 to 2.52. So we have to focus on delaying the marriage, and 21 and 18 has done very well for India. Although it is a fact that about 20-30% of the marriages have been illegal, which means below the legal age of marriage. Since it is so widespread, the government did not come down heavily on them because social issues have to be dealt with a bit of sensitivity. Next slide, please. Now, income. You will see the poorest people produce 3 children. The richest people produce 1.6. It comes down exactly by half. So again, the same point which was shown by literacy pattern. Next, please. We can delete this. Workers, non-workers. Again, it has something to do with income. Obviously, non-workers are poorer, therefore they produce more children. Next, please. Now, as the service delivery improves, total fertility goes down. Next slide, please. So where do Muslims stand in all these socio-economic factors? Well, they stand at the bottom. Therefore, what is the answer? Please address their literacy. Please focus on their income. Please reach out to them with your medical and health services. Go to their areas and provide clinics, and they will respond. Next, please. Now, in literacy, Muslims are at the bottom, which is the green line. First chart is about men, the second chart is about women. Now, incidentally, you will notice that if Muslims are the least, they're at the bottom. Who is the second bottom most? The Hindus. Now, this is the point which is missed, and the impression in public mind is that Hindus are on one side of the spectrum, Muslims are at the other end of the spectrum. Actually, Hindus and Muslims are shoulder to shoulder, as you will see from this slide and the many slides to follow. Next slide, please. Antenatal care. Its availability to the Muslims, according to NFHS 4, it is the least for the Muslims and the second least for the Hindus. They are also not far behind. So they're again shoulder to shoulder. They are brothers in arms. Next, please. Availability of health infrastructure and services is lowest for Muslims, as you can see, and second lowest for the Hindus. Next, please. Availability of advice on family planning, same pattern. Next, please. Now, I also studied in this book, there is a chapter on family planning in Muslim countries. In Muslim countries, there is no political pressure, just as we have in India, some party, gunning for the Muslims and making it a Hindu-Muslim issue. In those Muslim countries, that is not the thing. But family planning has been given developmental priority in Islamic countries. Even in most conservative countries like Iran. In fact, Iran has the best family planning in the world, whereas it is the most conservative Islamic country. Egypt, Indonesia, and even Bangladesh was overtaken India. When they separated from Pakistan, their birth rate was very high, but they had a very active and excellent family planning program. They brought down their population growth even lower than India. So that's something to be really appreciated. I'll show you the table which will follow this one, which shows that these countries, despite their powerful clergies, in all these countries, there are mullahs, the powerful clergies. But despite that, Islam has not come in the way of family planning program. On the contrary, in countries like Bangladesh and Indonesia and many others, I think imams and mosques have actively propagated family planning. You have heard of Friday, the prayer and the sermon, khutbah, which is delivered by the imam before the Friday prayer, because there is a large congregation. In Indonesia, Bangladesh, in that khutbah, they talk of family planning. So, which is why the family planning in the highly Muslim countries, predominantly Muslim countries, family planning has done so well. Next, please. Now, this is the same chart. You will notice Iran, the TFR is only 1.62. India's TFR is 2. Iran is 1.6. Then Malaysia, Turkey, Bangladesh, all these countries. What you will notice is if you go down, Pakistan has 3.38, whereas Bangladesh has improved phenomenally. So the countries which are lagging behind will have to pay the price for this. So they must adopt family planning proactively and learn from other Islamic countries. Next, please. Now, population and political propaganda. The Hindu right wing continues to provoke Hindus to produce more children by creating a fear that Muslims will soon outnumber Hindus. Now, is it not ridiculous that 80%, 80 people are scared of 14 people? So, and that is the fear. Look, these guys will eat you up, they will kill you, they will murder you, you should also produce, have many more children. So, that is the propaganda which has gone on and has now been revived as late as last week when the leader of the RSS, he said that Hindus should not accept two-child norm, they should go for three-child norm. Otherwise, they will become extinct. And he, of course, they are giving some examples, which is a matter of deeper understanding. And if necessary, I'll explain that to you also. I've also given you the mathematical model. Therefore, we can go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Now, as I have been saying, the Muslims and Hindus are actually in the same boat. TFR of Muslims is the highest at 2.3. Hindus are not very far. There are 2. Hardly any gap. The gap is only 0.3, which I had mentioned in the very first slide. And also in literacy, age of marriage. Now, unmet need. This is a new concept which I haven't talked about till yet, but this is important. Now, what is unmet need? That somebody wants to do family planning, but doesn't know how to do it and does not have family planning and healthcare services available. So, and studies show from where I've quoted, the unmet need of the Muslims is the highest, about 12%, which means out of 100 Muslims, 12 Muslims are those who are dying to do family planning, but the service is not available to them. So, what should be our goal? That we should try to meet this unmet need on an emergency basis in a mission mode quickly. Now, motivating people, whether it is Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, or anyone, motivating them to do family planning was a difficult task 20, 30, 40 years ago. Very difficult. But here is a situation that they are dying to do family planning, but the services are not available. So the answer lies in meeting that unmet needs. That needs to be understood. Now, National Population Policy 2000, which is the current policy, it had targeted the TFR of 2.1 by 2010. We achieved it by 2020, but we have achieved it. Yeah, so actually, family planning program of India, we were the first country, by the way, in the world to have a national family planning program as early as 1951. And it has been a success because all this family planning has been achieved through persuasion and education and motivation, not by force, as in many countries. Of course, there was a phase of emergency, over 18 months of emergency in 1975 and 77, when sterilization was done forcibly. And there was such a backlash that the country did not recover from that backlash for a good 20, 30 years. No politician could dare to talk about family planning. There was so much of anger among the people because it was pushed down the throats. But the rest of the implementation of family planning in India has always been through persuasion and education, and it has been a great success story. And only four northern states are lagging behind, whereas the four southern states have shown us the way. Now, five southern states. Next slide, please. Now, then where is the failure? They were all plan and policy documents have recorded high birth rate of Muslims, but no solutions were offered or attempted. Now, real factors were not addressed. Literacy, poverty, service delivery. No, literacy. Even today in 2024, 300 million people of India are illiterate. Is it not a shame? It's not something for us to be embarrassed about. Why after 70 years, whereas the constitution had provided that there should be universal elementary education within 10 years, which means by 1960, every single Indian should have got elementary education. And here is a situation that after 75 years, we have 300 million illiterates. So we need to address that. Poverty, of course, how many are below poverty line? Figures vary, parties claim, counterclaim. But the fact that 80 crore people, 80 crore have to be given free rations for survival, free rations, as if you're giving charity to the beggars. So if this is the indication of poverty level, so the poverty level is very, very high. In such a situation, family planning performance being low is understandable. Similarly, service delivery, our health and service delivery in North India is much poorer than the South Indian states. Andhra Pradesh has a great model. Tamil Nadu has a great model. So why can't the northern states learn from the South? Now, no efforts were made to dispel these myths. If these are the myths, did government of India try to dispel these myths? In fact, I once, when I was doing research for my paper, I wrote to Joint Secretary concerned in Family Planning in the Ministry, what is the program you are doing to dispel their feelings about or ignorance about Islam? They say we make no distinction between Hindus and Muslims. Now, this is politically a correct answer, but scientifically a foolish answer. Well, if there is a distinction, if a community produces more children, if a community believes that it is allowed to produce more children by their religion, so the true teaching of the religion has to be communicated to them, but no effort was made, and for totally unscientific reason. So obviously, since no efforts were made, so no training was given to the health staff. Suppose I am a Muslim. If you come to my house, Quraishi, you have 10 children, 8 children, this is very bad, you should do family planning. And I give you just one line answer. Okay, look, my religion prohibits family planning. Can you argue with me? You will just go away because you yourself don't know the Islamic position. But if you knew what the religion says, Islam says, you will at least argue with me. So I have suggested that a fact book or a resource book should be developed, and I have volunteered that I will do it for Government of India or for any state government pro bono for free. I will develop it, and so that on that basis, health staff is trained so that they can answer the ignorance of the people and tell them, can look, I will give them this booklet. Can look, this is what Islam says, this is what Quran says. Therefore, if you are doing family planning, you are actually following your religion, you are not going against it. Now, as I mentioned to you, that during emergency, because of the forcible implementation of family planning, there was a backlash which survived for long. So about some 8-9 years ago, I was made a chairman of a committee by the National Institute of Health and Family Welfare about the attitude of politicians to the subject. And what did we find? We examined parliament questions which were asked over 4 parliament, 13, 14, 15, and 16. That means about 20 years. For 20 years, we examined how many questions, parliament questions were asked on family planning. And we found that only 0.15%. No MP was willing to talk of family planning. It had become such a taboo subject, such an unpopular subject. So we need to deal with this. So I had suggested in that committee that we should tell our politicians that family planning should not be taken in isolation. It should be, it has an impact. If the population of a village grows, you will need more school, you will need more drinking water, you will need more food for them. So all the services will have to be enhanced. So there will be more unemployment. If you explain to them the linkages of population growth with the development indicators, at least they will stop shunning this subject and they will start taking interest and asking questions in Parliament. Next, please. What are the recommendations? This is the last slide, in which I mentioned, of course, national population policy is a great idea. Every community should do family planning very, very proactively. Muslims particularly, if they want to progress, they are poorer, they are more illiterate, so they should make more efforts. Then special effort should be made to educate those who are resistant to family planning. Its true Islamic position must be understood and propagated. A staff must be trained to answer people's doubts sensitively. Sensitively is an important word. A resource book must be created for staff and political leaders, as I volunteered. And faith leaders, this is important. Faith leaders must be involved. As I mentioned, in Indonesia and in Bangladesh, imams of mosques, they propagated family planning with great success. So why can't we send our imams and Maulanas to Indonesia, Bangladesh, Iran to study why the program is successful there? Or conversely, invite the ulama or the scholars, Islamic scholars from those countries to India and explain their success story to us. So this is one recommendation. Then all the success stories, because here, even in India, like South India is a success story. How did they achieve the success which North could not? It should be explained to people. Muslim youth must be encouraged to participate in family planning program. And of course, Muslim youth is that major target because they are in the reproductive age. So they are not only the target audience, and they are also the best communicators. So all communities must work together for population stabilization. It should not be one versus the other, Hindu versus the Muslim. It will be bad for the country. And if we have any love for the country, we should work together. And all kinds of false propaganda must be dispelled with a collective effort. For instance, if you think that what I have said makes sense, maybe you should carry this message to some of your friends, some of your neighbors, so that they know the truth. Not emotionally, but factually and logically. Thank you very much. I'm open to question and I'll attempt to answer them.
Sir, thank you very much, sir. It was indeed a great lecture. I hope that the myths have been demystified. The reality lies not in the religious color, but in the region, as you pointed out. Second, the reality also lies in the more of socioeconomic factors than the other, such as literacy, income, the availability of healthcare, or other such service delivery. Third, there is still lot has to be done in the administrative sphere, legislative sphere, and also the political sphere. Taking these points forward, now I move forward to take certain questions from the students, sir, with your permission.
Yes, of course.
So the first question is from Hyderabad Koheda campus, Manjula Madam.
Manjula ji.
Yeah, students should come forward in front of camera and they can ask the question by telling their name and the class.
What I see on the screen are the various classrooms, is it?
All these are separate classes.
All the, how many?
There are 1,200 students sitting in front of you, sir, in different classrooms.
Oh, okay. Very nice, very nice.
Good evening, sir. I am Ananya from. My
Yes.
question to you is, when poverty and social indicators are mentioned,
Why did that very careful? I think you should lower your volume. You should lower your volume and there will be no feedback.
so my question to you is that
Now you can ask.
when poverty and social indicators,
And then, sir, speaker should be muted. Only when then mic will work properly.
Yes, sir.
so my question to you is that when poverty and social issues are in first issue, we should focus specifically on the minority first.
Sir, 1 second, sir. Your mic has to be unmuted. 1 second.
Okay. Yeah, I was saying that it's not a question of community, it's a question of poor, the illiterate. So we have to focus on their illiteracy and we have to focus on their poverty, whosoever it is, whatever be the community, and then we'll have the results. So, which is what I tried to do through the presentation, to de-link religion from the real socio-economic factors which have which influence our fertility behavior.
Another question from Manjula Madam again, madam. Go for the second question, madam.
Meanwhile, I'll show this book. This is what it looks like. If you go on Amazon, it will be quite heavily discounted, 320, 30, 40 rupees or something. So it's a good investment in understanding population program. My topic today was only limited to this Hindu-Muslim issue, but actually this explains the entire family planning program. Yes.
Manjula madam, second question, madam.
Good evening, sir. My name is Aradhya. Sir, when we see from 1992 to 93, the TFR is 4.4. Should we consider these numbers are in recent response to the public policy rather than the religious efforts? Thank you, sir.
Sir,
Sir, you have to unmute yourself
mic
again.
has to.
No, you are muting me, so you please unmute me also. Okay. So anyway, what I was saying was 92, 93 was the first National Family Health Survey. At that time, our TFR was, of course, about 3.5 or 4. If I open the book, I'll know the exact thing. So, but the fact for the last 30 years, because the effort of Government of India and state governments and NGOs, the fruits of our efforts are very evident. we have already achieved the replacement rate. Actually, we are now below the replacement rate. We are just 2. Replacement rate is 2.1. So, and that is when half the country is still not adopted family planning. Imagine if the entire country adopts family planning, our figures will improve further, will compete with the European standard, and after 40 years or so, the population will start coming down. It will increase to about 1.6 billion till 2060 or so, as per the projections of the experts. But once the population stabilizes, even although we have achieved 2.1, 2 or 2.1 already, but there are children who were produced in the last 10, 15 years. They will now come into reproductive age. They will continue to produce children for the next 20, 30 years. So, which is why the stabilization of population will come by 2060, after which the number will come down. Which is what has happened in Europe, in America, and which is what will happen in India. And you will remember that there was a time when we were all worried about population explosion. What will happen? We will starve. There will be so much of where will they get the food grains from? But our food grain production, which was we were in deficit by 1 lakh tons in 1951. We are producing 6-7 times more food. We are surplus in many items we export. So development has to be focused on, and our same population, which was considered a liability, has proved to be our asset. We are now a superpower. We are on the verge of becoming a superpower. China had more population. They had more poverty. But then they are now economically, they're ruling the world. So all we need to do is educate them. Same people who are considered liability are now our asset. If we educate them and give them quality education, so our investment should be more in the skill development, in quality education and skill development.
Next question is from Vijayawada Boys Campus. Satish sir, over to you, sir. Sir, the question is this, sir. Given that South India is considered to have less religious influence compared to North India, can the socioeconomic gaps be attributed to the differences in the religious influence? This is one thing. There is further to this question. Furthermore, if socioeconomic indicators are poorer among Muslims, does this point to Islam exerting a stronger religious influence compared to Hinduism?
Well, actually the first statement that in South religion plays a smaller role, I do not agree with that. In fact, I feel the South Indian Muslims are better Muslims than we North Indian Muslims. To say that they're far from religion is absolutely not correct. They are very good in religious practice, and they are also very enlightened. They have a higher level of literacy. They are higher level of education, which is the factor. Religion is actually irrelevant. So that's the point I had emphasized and would re-emphasize. Your second question was what?
The second part says, if socioeconomic indicators are poorer among Muslims, does this point to Islam exerting a stronger religious influence compared to Hinduism?
No, not at all. Traditionally, the Muslims have been poorer in education, and there is a general poverty from the beginning of independent India. That has been the case. It is not because of religion that they're poor or they're illiterate. Religion doesn't come in the way at all. And even if some Tablighi Jamaat and others, they come and they say that you should send your children to madrasa, it is not to take them away from the school, but because madrasa again also is a very misunderstood term. Madrasa is nothing but an Arabic word for pathshala, where you educate people. Now, every Muslim child is supposed to learn the Quran once in his lifetime or her lifetime, which is normally in the childhood. Now, obviously, Quran is not taught in a government school. It will have to be taught somewhere. It is taught in a madrasa. So what happens is that Muslim children go to the madrasa after school hours, and where they study about the Quran, so that they become good Muslim. And for their normal education, they go to the normal school, which is the nearest school. Now, schools are now the stone's throw from everybody's home now. 40, 50 years ago, there were more madrasas and less schools. So, and in these madrasas also, it is not that they were teaching only Quran. They were also teaching language and mathematics and all of the subjects. Because, as I said, if you just forget the word madrasa and think it is a pathshala for the Muslim, it is exactly just that and nothing more, nothing less.
There is another question from same Vijayawada campus. If we consider region and the socioeconomic indicators as the more important aspects to make sure that there is population stabilization, and considering that the population and family planning being in the concurrent list, how should we see the role of state governments and local governments in this?
Well, I have often heard this debate that if it is in the central list, it should be brought into concurrent list. So, for instance, I was in the sports ministry and we used to hear this every time, that bring it to concurrent list. Once I asked my minister, look, what is it that you're not able to do because it is not in concurrent list, it is in the state list. He had no answer. So just playing with the terminology, this list, that list. So if it is in the state list, family planning is in the state list, but at the same time, central government has this program where they promote, they fund all these schemes. So changing the list from this to that doesn't matter. Ultimately, it has to go reach the grassroots, for which the best is the state government and the district administration. So it should be made a local specific program, because the reality of every village, every town is different. We have to go down to the grassroots level and then deal with the problem, because national figures can give you a misleading thing. For instance, just on a lighter note, somebody asked a villager, what is the depth of this canal? So he says average depth is 5. And the moment the guy stepped into the canal, there the depth was 12. So he drowned. So average, no, sometimes these averages, national average, the bigger the average, the more misleading it is. You have to deal with the problem totally at the local level, which is where the reality is. So we have to see what is the literacy rate in that village, what is the economic development indicator of that village, and do everything to bring it up on a par with the others.
Good answers. Now the next question is to the Nellore campus. Kiran sir.
Pleasant good evening, sir. Myself, I'm the Nellore Narayana IAS Academy, studying in inter-second year. My question is, as per the National Family Health Survey 5, the total fertility rate has been fallen. Due to this, aging population is continuously growing. Is it going to impact demographic dividend of our country, as we are aspiring to become a $5 trillion and third largest economy? What measures should our government to take to overcome this issue?
Yeah, as I explained to you that our family planning program has been a success, and we have already achieved the replacement rate. And if we focus a little more in Bihar and UP and improve the program even further, that will be icing on the cake. Now, even with the 300 million illiterate people, even with half the population not covered by family planning, we have become an economic, if not superpower, economic major. 5th largest economy will become the 3rd largest. So we have to focus on skill development. In fact, I would give you some figures, just if you give me a minute. These are the figures which I mentioned in my book, by the way. Where is it? One second. Give me one more minute, please. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Well, in my book somewhere, I have indicated that we have become an economic powerhouse despite the fact that the formally skilled population, is less than 5%. Whereas if you look at UK, Japan, China, others, it is 20%, 30%, 40%. And in the case of South Korea, as much as 95.6%, almost 96%. 96% skilled and they are a good economic power. We are only 5% skilled. Imagine if we were 10% formally skilled, we will capture the world. We are already 25 of the top CEOs in America. They are Indians because of the quality education we gave through our IITs and IIM. That is the kind of a skill we require. So we have to focus on quality education and skill education. And we will notice, while of course primary education and others we'll focus on, but the skill education is something we need to concentrate on and invest in, which will surely help us to become an economic giant.
Thank you very much.
Now the next question is from Narayana IAS Vijayawada Girls Campus. Salman, sir.
Sir, I'm Gauri from degree final year.
You are inaudible, Amma. Switch on the mic and ask. Tell your name and class.
Good
She
evening, sir.
Yeah, just be louder.
Sir, given the fact that dwindling population of South India in comparison to rising population of North
Keep the
India.
mic closer, bit closer, Amma. It will be better audible.
Hello, sir. Is it audible?
Yes, very good, much better. Keep it close.
Sir, given the fact that dwindling population of South India in comparison to rising population of North India, what is its impact on delimitation?
Good, very good question, and I refer to this. This is a very important point which was raised as far back as 1971. Because under the Constitution, every 10 years with the census, we have to draw the lines, we have to do the delimitation. But in 1971, South Indian states protested that we have done better in family planning. Our population has been controlled, whereas North India, particularly Bihar, UP, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, their population is growing. Why should they benefit for their non-performance? So our performance, we will be punished and they will be rewarded for non-performance. So the logic of the South Indian states was accepted. And I think it was 1976 or 71 or 76. It was decided that for 25 years, these figures will be frozen. The number of seats allotted to the state. If it is as per population, there will be dwindling of a number of MPs of the South, but that was frozen for 25 years. Again, the matter came up in 2002 when 25 years were completed. Same logic was applied because the logic still was valid, and the same parliament, this time under Mr. Vajpayee, earlier it was Indira Gandhi, this time under Vajpayee, they decided that we will freeze the delimitation, the seats allocated to every different state for another 25 years. Now, those 25 years are about to end, and in 2026, there will be a new delimitation. Already there are concerns, there is a debate, what will happen? Now, my feeling is it will be foolhardy to disturb this arrangement, because what was logical 25 years ago and 50 years ago, the same logic still stands. So we can't say that now 50 years gone, okay, let us give 10, 20 more seats to UP and 10 more seats to Bihar. That will be unfair to the South. And I don't think states will take it lying down. And they surely will be protest. And I'm sure the government of the day will see this logic and not create disturbance in the country on that ground. And delimitation will be frozen for another 25 years till the whole country is on a same footing.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, with your permission, I'll take 2 or 3 more questions, even though the time is getting up.
Up to you.
Yes. One more question from Vijayawada Girls Campus, Salman, sir.
Good evening, sir. I'm Harika from Senior Inter. The rise of artificial intelligence and its impact on employment opportunities can lead to universal basic income. Can India afford such a scheme for its population?
Well, actually, that's a very important question. But at the same time, the answer would be, you remember when the computer was introduced in the 80s, there were protests, there were banking unions, the government employees union, and they said if you bring in computer, there will be unemployment. Whereas actually the computer created more employment and more prosperity. And the 25 top CEOs of the American companies which I mentioned, they all came on top because of the computer. They did not create unemployment. The same banking unions which were protesting against introduction of computers are using the same computers now. Similarly, the same debate in a different form is going on now, whether because of artificial intelligence, people will lose their jobs. Maybe yes. I have a research assistant who is also who has joined this group. I'll ask him whether he feels threatened, because some of the work which I used to ask him to do, please find me what was the situation in such and such year. I'm now able to do on Chat GPT myself. But that doesn't mean that there is an unemployment of a research assistant. In fact, I refer it back to him and he finds lots of flaws in it. So artificial intelligence will be another tool for us to improve our performance, the quality of our work. It will not create unemployment. At the same time, the issues which are being raised, because while through artificial intelligence, you can solve problems, but you can also create problems. I recently wrote an article which some of you may like to Google, because politics and democracy is a part of your civil service aspiration. Artificial intelligence and its impact on elections. And I have given both the pros and cons, the challenges and the opportunities. The opportunity is that we have been grappling for a long time with duplicate voters. So we use with different kind of deduplication software, and at the same time, for the last so many years, we had very limited success. There are still duplicate voters and voter who is recorded at not 2 places, but even 3 or 4 or 5 places, and we are not able to identify. So we can use artificial intelligence to identify those duplicate voters. At the same time, through artificial intelligence, fake speech, fake images. A leader is shown making a speech which he never did, and which can create trouble in the country. So that possibility. So artificial intelligence has to be used very. We have to find safeguard. Its mischief potential also has to be understood before we can achieve safeguard, and its benefits and its creative potential has to be understood so that we can exploit and use it. So the debate is still going on, and I think these young guys' mind in front of me right now, they should also divide yourself into groups and argue for and against, do debates and see. But this is a tool which is here to stay, whether we like it or not. The point is how to make it our partner, our friend, rather than a threat to India's or human development, and become a source of trouble and friction in the in the population. We have to use it carefully. But I think perhaps the positive contribution of artificial intelligence is a lot more than its negative potential.
Thank you,
Next
sir.
question is from Hyderabad Kuntlur campus. Giridhar sir, over to you, sir.
Good evening, sir. Myself Akshay from Narayana IAS Academy, Kuntlur. So my question is that, as we can see that the demographic bulge in our country has been taking place, at the same time, the resources have been crunching, and will that be issue for different society in the country? And what is your insight on it? Will that be a competition between different society section?
Yeah. Actually, the unemployment is the biggest national issue, and a lot of politics is played around that. And politicians say, okay, look, if one community increases its population, they will grab all the jobs, and therefore you should also produce more children. So that will only create complications for India. Point is quality. If you have fewer children, but with quality, they are sure to get a job. Because the private employers, in a government, you can get a job on sifarish or recommendation, but in the private sector, nobody is going to listen to a safari. They want work and they want bright minds. So therefore, focus smaller numbers but better quality in education and training is what is required. So that has to be the focus. There was some other thing which was coming to my mind, but when he started, but maybe in the next question. I hope you will take us to every center, Anandji.
Sir. Sir, I couldn't get you, sir. Sorry.
Nee, I hope you are including every center in the Q&A.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do it. Yes.
Yes.
So at the same time, will there be any urgent steps to be taken for this resource crunch?
For a resource crunch, can you explain what resource crunch are you talking about?
As we can see, the competition has been like a different section in society.
Yes.
So
Yes.
as a resource are be limited, will that
Correct.
be a competition will be taken place or not?
Yes. Actually, the competition is mostly for the jobs, and jobs also in the private, in the public sector, in the government. Cutthroat competition. If you advertise for the job of a peon, engineers and Ph.Ds also apply. That is the sad situation. But I think if the government focuses on vocational training, self-employment, and there are enough possibilities. Now, Bill Gates could not finish his graduation, and he's one of the top 3 richest people because he was a bright man with bright ideas. So I think we'll have to tell our youth that the government jobs are very, very limited. You will only frustrate yourself if you are chasing that. Can you think of some skill, some maybe which is running in the family or outside and in your village or in your neighborhood? And government can also come forward with a skill development program. They have a skill development ministry. How effective it is or not so effective, probably you will know better. But obviously, a lot more needs to be done for skill development, and self-employment is the answer. Running after jobs, particularly government jobs, will not take us anywhere.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, one last question. One question from Nellore Girls Campus. Kiran sir, over to you, sir. Sir, the question is this, sir, from the Sitamadhara Boys Campus. Why majoritarianism of our neighboring states is concern of demographic transition in our country, which also led to many famous movements in Northeast. I'll repeat the question, sir.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, it says majoritarianism of our neighboring states is concern of demographic transition in our country, which also has led to many famous movements in the Northeast.
I think he's referring to the Bangladesh population growth. Yes, of course. Bangladesh was a very, very poor country 40, 50, even 30 years ago, which is why they were migrating in search of jobs and to India mainly, and even to other parts of the world. Obviously, they will first go to the neighborhood, but migration from Bengal, the erstwhile Bengal, and later East Pakistan, so to neighboring state is natural. You first go to the neighborhood before going to South India. So that is why, there were so many movements in Assam against the infiltration of. In fact, there's a huge new national problem. National population register, the CAA, all this was born out of that problem. So there is no doubt that Bangladesh infiltration into India has created a lot of problems. But we should remember, before the revolution which happened recently, Bangladesh development indicators had improved phenomenally. They were doing better even than India. So, and people were writing, I have seen many articles saying that the migration may start in the reverse also. Same Bangladeshis who are looking for jobs outside, they will come back, because if prosperity has come to Bangladesh through development scheme, so why will they go outside? So that, of course, all that has been totally unsettled by this revolution. We don't know which way it will go. And on the second part, we have been talking of infiltration for the last 40 years. Why have we failed to achieve a foolproof the mechanism to stop this infiltration? I was hearing our Home Minister Amit Shah ji in Parliament 3 days ago, that 95% of the border has been, as permanent border, sealed borders, and wall has been created. But 5% is almost impossible, because there are rivers, there are rivulets, there are mountainous things where this kind of a wall is just not possible. So these small holes from which the infiltration can happen, we have to address that. So obviously, in a situation now, migration from Mexico to America to USA is a constant problem. Elections have been fought in America on that issue. Even the current, the incoming President Trump, his 1 point program to have a border, to have a wall between Mexico and USA. It's same thing as in the context of Bangladesh. Have a foolproof border. Stop infiltration. If you have failed, surely in search of job, after all, migration is a global phenomenon. Every other day we see a shipload trying to get into Italy drowns. And in most cases, there are poor Indians looking for jobs all over the world. So just as Indians are going all around the world looking for jobs and at great risk to their lives, similarly, Bangladeshis are trying to come to a little more prosperous India. And there are two options. One is to welcome them and adopt them and use them. The other is to stop them. To stop them, you have to make foolproof borders. So, which is a task of administration. And if you fail to do that, this is our failure.
With that question, I'll conclude this question and answer session. I'm really thankful to you for accepting graciously this invitation and delivering this very important lecture to demystify certain myths. And also, it's a great way of commemorating this adoption of UN Convention on Minority Rights.
Yeah. Anand, actually, when you mentioned it today is the Minority Rights Day, I did not know that. Maybe I do not consider myself a minority, but this is an important thing. And these are the good occasion to talk about those issues. What are the minority concerns and how to dispel them? So in any case, since they are all civil service aspirants, I would introduce this book to you, ladies and gentlemen. This is called An Undocumented Wonder, The Making of the Great Indian Election. I first published it in 2014. 6 editions have come. My 7th edition will be coming in a month or two, because after every general election, I add a chapter. So the 2024 election, because a lot has happened in the last 5 years, so I added that chapter, and it will go to the press within the next week or so. And look for this 7th edition and or whatever, because this is full of information for you about India's electoral system. I would also introduce this book to you, which is my latest, came out about 7-8 months ago. It is called India's Experiment with Democracy, The Life of a Nation Through Its Elections. And this is a collection of all my published articles, not all my articles, but some of my published articles on hot electoral topics. So, for instance, something happened in Maharashtra, whatever is happening, it is explained there. Something goes to the Supreme Court or electoral bond. What are the findings, electoral bond? There are many articles. So these two books, ladies and gentlemen, I do strongly recommend that you go on Amazon and see for yourself. They will be very useful reference books for you in your civil service examination, because always inevitably there are questions asked on the India's democracy and electoral system. With these, thank you very much, Anandji. You conducted it so well, and I'm so happy to see your different centers and their classroom and young student with rapt attention, with great discipline. I'm very impressed, and I wish them all the luck. I would love to see them in the IAS, IPS, and various services very soon, God willing. Thank you so much.
With those writings, I'm again seeing that you will be accepting one more invitation to deliver one more such very good lecture on January 25th. With your permission, I'm just proposing it right now. Seeing these elections and democracy as the core area where you have had lot of experience and wisdom, that would be a great thing to do. I request you to accept that also.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad you mentioned 25th January. I have a special attachment with that date. And you know why? I had once gone to Odisha talking to a civil service group, about 40-50 people. Well, somebody from the audience raised his hand and he said 18 years is a special age which we should celebrate. 18 years is when you become adult. I said, that's a great statement. Let us think of a celebration. So we put together a team to come up with some ideas, and we came up with a brilliant idea, National Voters Day. Now, originally we gave it the name New Voters Day, National New Voters Day. Those who will become 18 will become first-time voters. But later on, we changed it to National Voters Day. Then next question was on what day to keep it. So we decided, first thought was 26 January because we became a republic. But that is the time when we decided we'll make it on the 25th of January. Now, importance of 25th January, which not many people seem to know, is Election Commission of India was born a day before India was born as a republic. Election Commission of India was born on 25th January 1950, Indian Republic on 26th January the next day. So 25th January is a special day which we celebrate as National Voters Day, and how we do it and how it has empowered the youth, the biggest youth empowerment program in the world in the form of National Voters Day, and all its details and how it was approved by the government and all that is a matter of detail. And I look forward to accepting your invitation for that day in anticipation of your formal invitation to me. Thank
now
you.
Yes. So now I request our beloved Vice President, Sir Nagendra Pratap, sir, to issue concluding remarks over this session. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you. Sir Quraishi, sir, thank you. I will specifically say that it is a privilege to get educated from you. And it's an absolute honor to see how you actually solve these questions and queries and problems, and how much hard work you are doing to create academic wisdom, knowledge, which can actually bring our society together. So this is something that's very unique to you. You have been a role model for many of us who have prepared for the UPSC examination in the past. And we always look forward towards you in terms of knowledge and wisdom through newspapers, through books and everywhere. And this session was no less enriching in any of your previous session that I have done as well. So, sir, thank you so much. Before moving forward, actually, I want to tell these group of students two very important things, that whenever we go for such kind of sessions, they're very important in more ways than one. And some of these we can learn from the fundamental duties as well. Now, if you go to the fundamental duties, there are 11 fundamental duties. All of you know that. Now, one of the fundamental duties says, develop scientific temper, humanism, and spirit of inquiry and reform. This is very important. And one more fundamental duty is value and preserve the rich heritage of our country's composite culture. Now, when you are getting yourself trained to become civil servant, you have to keep this thing in mind, that when you become civil servant, there are many duties that you'll be doing. But the nature and structure of your delivery will be basically based on these core values. And when you learn from such a learned person, Quraishi sir is not, someone who's less known. He's one of the most established person that we can ever come across. You can see his academic work as well. Now, you can understand how important it is when you become civil servants to carry those core values, do things which are right, do things which are scientific, and make the societies more and more inclusive. And this is something that we have to learn continuously. These are important not only from the perspective of your own, feel-good factor, but these will come handy when you will go for your mains examination, even for interview, when you interact with people, when we try to convince people with right ideas. This becomes very important. So, sir, thank you so much. I also felt that I have learned a lot of things, and definitely looking forward for 25th January session as well, where we will learn even more about democracy and politics in India. Now, one thing I will add, because this system requires that, there is one important definition that we miss, because at times we blame our political masters for a lot of things. If you go through Britannica's, there's a lot of Britannicas there. So if you go through the definition of political party, there is one interesting definition, which I will say. Political party is a group of persons organized to acquire and exercise political power. So the focus is to acquire, and the second focus is to exercise. So at times they might fuel something which may be divisive in society. But we are trying to become civil servants. And this is why it is our job, it is our responsibility as a permanent executive to do our job in the best possible manner, so that this nation becomes much more stronger. We are a great nation. We are on the verge to become a superpower. But this journey of superpower will become easy if all of us can pool our resources and efforts and move in this systematic direction. So this is what I want to say. And I want to thank Anand sir. I want to thank Manoj sir. I want to thank Simnath Garu for being there, being a participant and helping the students in creating such wisdom, knowledge, and discussion. The best thing is when you ask questions, when you get your doubts solved, this is a two-way communication. And this is the beauty that I really appreciated. So, sir, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for educating us. And looking forward for 25th January session. We'll be sending across the formal invite tomorrow itself, so there is no miss. And this, we will also be more ready to be with our questions and queries and more things, so that this can be done in a nice fashion. Thank you, sir. Anand sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for those concluding remarks. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for supporting us to make this event happen. Sir, thank you, Quraishi, sir. I'm really, really grateful to you at the outset for accepting this invitation graciously and delivering this wonderful lecture. And it was a truly wisdom-creating lecture that we have witnessed today. And as you wrote in your book, this event too will be dedicated to our unity in diversity. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was a delight to talk to so many young people together. I'm very, very touched. Thank you, and looking forward to 25th of January.
Thank you so
much. One more thing, sir. I'm just trying to add. We have in Narana Group our library systems as well, and we will equip all our libraries with the books that you've already written and published. with their latest editions so that our students get benefited from your knowledge and wisdom.
Thank you, thank you. In which case I can mention, if you go to Amazon, there will be some other books also. One more on the election. There are 3 I've written. That is a collection of articles by very eminent people across the world. It is called The Great March of Democracy. There are 27 articles, including there is a chapter by T.N. Session.
Wow.
And there is a chapter on T.N. Session by a French professor. And Somnath Chatterjee, our former speaker, and then global scholars. So that is another, I did not mention it because it is only I edited it. And one of the 27 articles is by me. These 2 are my original books. Therefore, I promoted them only. The third one I kept quiet about. But for your library, even that will be an interesting book.
Sure, sir. Sure. So we'll definitely put it in the library, and we'll actually ensure that all the students who are excited and interested go through those books on a regular basis.
Right. By the way, of this book, the subject of today, population, the Telugu version was released only 3-4 months ago in Vijayawada.
Wow.
So if you look for it, Telugu version is available, and Kannada version is ready to be launched, and Malayalam version is also ready to be launched. Tamil is under process because we gave it to some translating company in Chennai, and they did all the 4 translations through Google. Ruined, and it cost me 1 year, because for 1 year everywhere we sent, they have been cursing. Okay, what kind of translation is it? That now they had to improve, redo the thing. So, but Telugu thing is which you may like to add to your library for those who are more comfortable with that language.
Sure, sir.
Thank you so much. It was a delight talking to you, and I look forward to being with you again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bye-bye.